She didn't flinch when the restraints activated. The cold bite of alien alloy around her wrists was familiar, routine, like breathing. The blue-skinned girl stood upright in the center of the circular chamber, her pale hair tangled and dirty but still proud. Her back was scarred with what looked like sigils, intricate geometric burns that shimmered faintly with embedded nanoink. The sigils weren't art. They were ownership. The Corthan officer behind her held a genetic coder in his gauntlet hand. It hummed with cruel efficiency, the prongs pulsing in tandem with the girl's heartbeat. He pressed a panel on its side, and the device emitted a violet glow that danced across the chamber's walls like a promise. This wasn't her first branding. She exhaled through her nose, refusing to beg. Her eyes tracked every movement without shifting her head. The Corthan didn't address her. She was cargo, a thing, not a person. Only the humans had ever argued otherwise, and they were too far to help now. He stepped forward. She clenched her teeth as the device was pressed to the base of her neck, where the flesh met the spine. The coder hissed. Light arced between the prongs. She convulsed but did not cry out. The machine restructured her DNA again, reshuffling proteins, embedding a new signature into the very coding of her existence. Her body stopped belonging to herself, and instead became property of Corthan's syndicate commander Tral Voxel. Once the device finished, he withdrew it and left her alone in the glowing chamber. She fell to her knees. Her breath shook. The new mark burned hotter than the last. Half a galaxy away, a transmission reached a remote Earth outpost orbiting the collapsed ruins of the Threenix Gate. It was a stray burst, a fragment of biotelemetry intercepted by accident. The data was dense, encrypted with Corthan biometric codes, but one human technician recognized the format. It was a genetic branding signature. Slavery at the cellular level. The technician flagged the anomaly and pushed it to Earth Intelligence Command. They pulled up archives, cross-referenced the brand with known black market movements. One match pinged red. A name unspoken for years. Alia, one of the last surviving members of the extinct Livelan race. Rumored dead. Declared lost during the cindering of Velsharan. She wasn't dead. She was marked again. Earth Command made a silent decision. No diplomatic channels, no interstellar complaints. Just a dispatch code. One word: extraction. He arrived quietly. The human had no insignia, no call sign, no military tags. Only a sealed mandate and a ship with no registration. His weapons were older than most of the species in the galaxy. He didn't wear armor. He didn't need to. The Corthan vessel was orbiting a dying star in a debris cloud, shielded from standard detection. But the human didn't use standard systems. He traced the decay pulse from the genetic brand itself, followed the faint trail through folded subspace until his ship blinked into silent formation against the predator hull of the Corthan cruiser. He didn't announce himself. He just boarded. The breach alarms started too late. 2 Corthan guards turned a corner and caught a glimpse of a figure stepping through vaporized alloy before their world ended in a hiss of heat and collapsed flesh. The human moved with surgical detachment, clearing corridors without flash or hesitation. No cruelty. No mercy. Deep inside the cruiser, Alia heard the alarms. The distant pulse of panic. The cell door remained shut. She didn't hope. It was probably a transfer. Another mark. Another owner. The human bypassed 3 more decks. Security drones dropped in pieces. Emergency bulkheads hissed closed behind him, cut open in seconds. Corthan Marines regrouped near the brig, armed and shouting. None of them made it past him. When the door finally slid open, Alia did not react. The shape in the frame was not what she expected. It wasn't one of them. It was tall. Human. Its eyes locked with hers. Alive, clear, not distorted by malice or command. She stared, lips parting. "You're not real," she whispered. "I am," he said. He didn't ask if she was the one he came for. He already knew. He stepped inside. The restraints clamped to the wall retracted with a flick from his left hand. No tool, no effort. Just precision. She staggered forward and nearly collapsed, but he caught her. She didn't weigh much. She hadn't been fed like she should. Your DNA's been rewritten, he said. Several times. Her voice was cracked. Then leave me. I'm property now. My code's not mine. It never will be again. He looked at her with something that wasn't pity. It was closer to certainty. That's reversible. She blinked. It's burned into me. Not beyond human reach. He set something in her hand. A small chip. Cold, inert. This will map the tampering. I'll undo it when we get you clear. Her hands shook, but she held the chip like it was the first thing she'd owned in years. Then the walls shook. The Corthan commander had overridden the self-destruct protocols. If he couldn't retain the asset, he'd deny it to anyone. The countdown echoed through the walls like a death chant. Can you walk? The human asked. Elia nodded. She was lying, but she would rather die on her feet than in a cell. He didn't correct her. He just put her arm over his shoulder and walked. The halls twisted with sirens and plasma bursts. He moved through them like they weren't real. The ship fought him. It failed. They reached the extraction corridor. His ship hovered just beyond the airlock, docked by magnets stronger than warship. The bay doors groaned. Brace, he said. He launched a grenade the size of a pebble. The pressure wave shattered the airlock, but didn't harm them. His shielding was exact, calculated. He stepped through with her as though walking across a garden path. She collapsed on the ship's floor. He shut the door and activated the cloaking systems. The cruiser exploded behind them. She didn't watch. He moved to the medical console and initiated the decontamination process. The chamber filled with gold mist, bathing her in molecules that scrubbed away trace nanotech, parasites, and residual command chain implants. She gasped as one layer of false encoding sloughed off her nervous system. What are you? She asked as she sat in the light. Human, he replied. I've seen humans. They don't come for things like me. You're not a thing. Her voice broke. That's all I've ever been. He sat across from her and held up a scanner. Your code was altered at 14 points. One of them includes a deathlock trigger. If you go beyond 10 light-years from your last owner, your heart stops. Then I can't leave. I'm going to delete it. She stared. You can't. I can. He activated the interface, dragging encrypted strings out of her biology. She felt it. It wasn't pain. It was unmaking. Unwinding chains not forged by metal but by gene. She choked on her own breath as the programming collapsed. Every memory she had screamed it was impossible. But here it was, unfolding. It took 7 minutes. At the end, the console chimed. It's gone, he said. She collapsed forward, crying for the first time in years. He didn't interrupt. He waited. Then he handed her water. Real water. From Earth. What do I call you? She asked. He hesitated. Names don't matter to me. They do to me. She was still trembling when the transport doors hissed open, exposing her to a new world that didn't reek of containment cells and synthetic submission pheromones. The human had brought her here, to this sanctuary he called Earth's Outpost 9. Her bare feet touched soil instead of metal for the first time in her life. The strange texture made her stop. It was too soft, too alive. He noticed and paused beside her. That's dirt, he said. You're free to stand wherever you want. She didn't move. Freedom wasn't a language she spoke. She waited for a command, a slap, a sharp pain if she disobeyed. When none came, she dared a question. Why? He blinked. Why what? Why are you not hurting me? You've been hurt enough. It wasn't an answer, not really. But his voice carried no coercion, no chemical modulation. It was raw. She stepped forward slowly, carefully, as though the ground might reject her for being unworthy. The wind ruffled her silver-white hair, brushing against her face without scanning or analyzing her. A breeze. She turned in slow circles, eyes wide. The world wasn't watching her. Inside the outpost, things were different. clean, warm, full of humans who stared but didn't leer. Some gawked. She could feel their unease, not because of her but because of the brand still glowing dimly beneath her collarbone. It pulsed faintly, reacting to the DNA coil embedded in her blood. She hated it. It marked her as property. The human, John, she'd learned his name, led her to a sterile lab. Another woman waited inside. Older. Stern. Her name was Dr. Halvorsen, and she didn't smile. "I'm going to remove the brand," the doctor said, snapping gloves on. "But I'll need your consent." The girl flinched. Consent? Another foreign word. "You want me to say yes?" "I want you to mean it." She hesitated, then nodded, slowly, silently. The doctor approached with a device unlike any she'd seen. Not invasive. Gentle. It hummed, and the glowing sigil etched in her DNA began to flicker. For a moment, the pain screamed back to life, her nerves reliving the branding day. Then it was gone. Just like that. Her knees buckled. John caught her. "Easy. It's gone," she whispered, tears leaking uninvited. "It's really gone." She slept that night in a bed. A real bed. The room had no locks. No restraints. She woke up 4 times expecting a siren, punishment, or a new assignment. Each time, silence greeted her. Her brain didn't know how to process it. Peace was noise she didn't understand. Breakfast was another test. She wasn't required to eat kneeling. No one shouted for her to wait until the others finished. No one measured her intake. She watched John eating and mimicked him. The food had flavor. She cried again. "You know you're safe, right?" John asked her between bites. She didn't answer. Her mind clung to the possibility of surveillance. Maybe this was all a test. Maybe the overseers had programmed him to break her down a different way. But days passed. Then weeks. She began to speak more. Learned words she wasn't allowed to know before. Concepts that were banned in her slave tongue. Freedom, choice, opinion. John taught her earth languages. English, Spanish, Hindi. She was fast. Faster than anyone expected. Her mind was unshackled, and it devoured everything. She told him her name. Elora. It was a risk. Names were forbidden among branded slaves. Names gave identity. Identity birthed rebellion. But she whispered it, and he didn't recoil. He said it back to her with a smile. Elora. The sound struck something deep in her chest. Something warm. She joined training simulations soon after. He encouraged it, physical therapy masked as preparation. She didn't need long. Her body, once conditioned for obedience, remembered how to fight. She moved like water through fire. Silent, swift, deadly. But her strikes never landed on the humans sparring with her. She held back. One day, John tossed her a live blade. "Use it. I don't want to hurt you. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to stop pretending you're still a prisoner." The blade was perfectly balanced. She twirled it in her hand, something feral rising in her blood. Her body remembered. She stepped into the circle and fought. No longer the caged pet. No longer pretending. She won. John clapped once. "That's more like it." Later, she found him on the outpost's upper terrace, staring at stars. "You knew I was capable of this," she said. "I read the lab reports. They marked you as a failed prototype because you wouldn't kill. I wasn't made to kill. But you could." She sat beside him. The stars stretched forever above. So many galaxies. So many empires that hadn't seen what Earth had become. So many who still thought branding people like her was acceptable. "Why did you save me?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. Then, "Because someone didn't save my sister." The silence thickened. She was taken during the raids. Branded. By the same species that made you. I spent 10 years trying to find her. When I finally did, it was too late. "I'm sorry." He shrugged. "You're not her. But when I saw you, I couldn't walk away." The wind picked up. Elora leaned into it. "What happens now? You choose. That's what freedom means." "I want to burn them," she said softly. Every overseer. Every lab. Every ship that carries their stench. He didn't flinch. Then we start planning. The next day, the outpost received word. A convoy of the species that had created her was moving through the sector. Escort ships. No slaves aboard. Just tech. Vulnerable. John let her decide. She said yes. They launched with a small strike force. No fanfare. No declarations. Silent and surgical. Elora boarded the main ship herself. Armor tailored to her form. Blade at her side. She moved like shadow through corridors she once scrubbed on her knees. But now they didn't ignore her. They screamed. And she silenced them. She found a genetics officer near the command deck. He recognized her. You're supposed to be extinct. She smiled. You're supposed to be in charge. He reached for a stunner. She split his throat. The control deck fell minutes later. John and the strike team joined her, clearing systems, wiping databases. Every record of the branded wiped clean. The ship's AI begged for mercy. Elora uploaded a virus that corrupted every slave management protocol across the sector. When they returned to Outpost 9, the galactic networks were already buzzing. The Overseer's mainframe had collapsed. Slave brands were failing. DNA chains dissolving. Panic in their empire. Rumors of a rebel. They didn't call her by name. But the symbol left on the bridge, the broken ring, was her mark. She stood on the observation deck and watched the stars. She didn't tremble anymore. She didn't flinch at noises or wait for commands. John joined her. They're calling you a myth already, he said. I'm real. You want them to know your name? She thought about it. The power of a name. The danger. The truth. Yes, she said. I want them to hear it and know fear. Then say it. She looked at the stars. I am Elora, the last branded. And I am free. Across the galaxy, chains snapped in labs and dungeons. Slaves blinked in confusion as control faded. Some cried. Some laughed. Some rose up with screams. Revolution didn't need armies. It needed a spark. Elora was that spark. But she wasn't done. John brought her more intel. Secret facilities. Old archives. Places where the experiments hadn't stopped. The overseers responded in force. Elora had expected them to retreat, to consolidate power in safer sectors. Instead, they sent reclamation fleet. Not to fight. Those weren't warships, but to capture. Their objective wasn't destruction. It was her. They wanted their broken experiment back. They didn't understand. She wasn't theirs anymore. The first fleet entered neutral space near Proxima Junction. Elora and John intercepted it with a human-led alliance. Not soldiers. Liberated former branded, angry and armed. They didn't speak as they launched. No speeches. No O's. Only action. The reclamation vessels used slave suppression frequencies, but Elora had already nullified the bionodes in their DNA. The waves were useless. They cut through the overseer ships, not because of superior firepower, but because no one held back. These weren't soldiers protecting territory. They were survivors ending a legacy. When it was over, no overseer ships remained. One escaped pod drifted, broadcasting desperate pleas for clemency. Elora ordered it retrieve. She entered alone. Inside, the overseer captain cowered behind his own blood. We gave you purpose, he hissed. You branded children. They were nothing before us. So were we. But we made ourselves something. Without you. He lunged. She snapped his neck before his feet left the ground. The message was clear. Back on Outpost 9, word arrived that the Overseers were convening a summit. Not with Earth, but with the core Galactic Council. They painted Elora as a destabilizing threat. A rogue agent. An anarchist undermining peace. Council envoys requested her presence. John opposed it. It's a trap. Elora agreed. I'm going anyway. She arrived with no weapons. No escorts. Just a scar over her brand that had never fully faded. The chamber was filled with species that once bought her kind. Most looked away when she entered. Cowards. Beneficiaries of a system they didn't build but never questioned. The High Chancellor spoke first. You disrupted galactic order. I destroyed a slave network. You're not a citizen of any sovereign state. I'm not your subject either. The Overseer representative rose. She leads unregulated attacks, targets medical vessels, incites rebellion. They were breeding labs, Elora said. And I incite liberation. The council murmured. The Chancellor spoke again. What is it you want? Elora answered without hesitation. Ban the branding genome across all systems. Criminalize its development. Release the branded still held. Burn every registry. And if we don't? Then I keep going. A councilwoman leaned forward. You don't have the numbers. I don't need numbers. I have the truth. And you fear it. They adjourned with no resolution. Elora returned to Outpost 9 and prepared for war. The next strike was bolder. Not a slave ship, not a convoy, but the factory where the branding genome was synthesized. It was buried beneath a gas giant's surface lab, surrounded by radiation storms, automated defenses, shielded reactors. She went anyway. A fleet of 11 ships launched. 8 were former slaves. 3 were human-built. No war banners. Just clean hulls and vengeance. They descended through the storms, hulls buckling, alarms screaming. They burned through turrets, smashed through force barriers, and reached the core lab. Elora led the breach. Inside, she found Vat. Living children, grown from spliced strands, genetically tuned for obedience, born to serve. She didn't speak. She set charges. One technician pleaded. Some of them aren't viable. They'll die if removed. They'll die if left, she said. At least now they'll die free. The lab ignited behind her as they ascended. After that, she was no longer a whisper. Her name crossed every starnet. Some painted her as a hero. Others called her a threat to civilization. Rebellions erupted in border systems. Slave markets fell in hours. Branding clinics went dark. The overseers issued a kill directive. She smiled when she read it. Assassins came. Not amateurs. Silent, engineered killers from the deep houses. She killed the first with a glass shard. The second with her bare hand. The third never reached her. A former branded sniper took the shot before the killer exited orbit. John increased her security. She reduced it. You're a symbol now, he said. No, she replied. I'm the result. A planet called Draxus petitioned Earth for aid. Their population of branded had risen up. The local rulers were killing them in the street. Elora diverted 2 fleets. The battle was brief. The survivors swore allegiance to nothing but the truth. They were not property. An overseer research moon fell next. Then a data vault. Then a breeding hold. Each victory carved new cracks in an empire that believed it couldn't fall. And still, she was not satisfied. She sought the origin world. The place where the first brand was designed. Where the DNA formula was etched into the blood of the innocent. It was forbidden even to the overseers. Lost in a dying system, surrounded by mines, decay, and silence. She found it. The planet was barely alive. Rotting. Machines buried in the crust, endlessly churning. She descended with only 2 others. Former branded, one from the first wave, one from the last. Inside the core, they found the vault. A room of records. Stolen identities. Genetic logs. Every slave ever processed. Elora found hers. Unit 73FEL Delta 017. Created. Branded. Owned. Assigned. She deleted it. She found John's sister's file. Deleted it too. They triggered the vault's overload sequence. As the planet began to fracture, Elora stood in the heart of the original sin. No one should ever know this place existed. The others agreed. They left as the world died. Back at Outpost 9, John met her in silence. He didn't ask what she saw. She didn't offer. But she placed something in his hand. A chip. Her birth record. Her first scream. She had a name, she said. He nodded. They all will. Galactic Council reconvened. This time they called her. Not to accuse. To negotiate. They offered amnesty. A monument. A treaty. She declined. Not until every last branded is free. An overseer ambassador approached her after the summit. He was old. Tired. Not afraid. You know we'll never stop trying to rebuild. I know. So why fight? Because I'm not alone anymore. And she wasn't. In a year, the branded were no longer a whisper. They had names. Homes. Some joined Earth. Some built new colonies. Some simply lived. Elora kept going. Her ship was silent. Dark. Fast. A ghost through space. When she found the last breeding vessel, it was abandoned. Its systems failing. But there were still children inside. She opened every pod. Held every trembling hand. They didn't understand words. They understood eyes. And hers told them, "You're free." One of them looked up. Silver-haired. Sharp-eyed. Like her. "Who are you?" She paused. "I'm no one they told you about. Are you going to hurt me?" "Never." "Are you the human?" She shook her head. "I'm Elora. The last brand. And I'm here because no one was there for me." She picked him up. And walked out. Behind her, the vessel cracked apart, forgotten forever. No one would wear chains again. And the galaxy, once comfortable with its silence, would never forget her scream.